Let's talk about sociological perspectives. You've been reading about it in the text a little bit. I thought we would take a couple minutes and just talk about the key ways that sociologists look at the world. So we'll look at functionalism, conflict approach, interactionism, feminism. The first thing we can say is that the first two, functionalism and conflict theory, are macro theories. Interactionism is a micro theory. The difference being macro theories are looking at large groups of people, nation states, economies, ethnic groups and races, social classes, and looking at large processes like workers and factory owners. Micro theorists are looking at the behavior of individual people, and we'll get to that more in a second. So let's start with functionalism. Functionalism looks at society, I guess I should say. Looks at society as one functioning entity, like a human body almost. You can't take this metaphor too far, but if we start with my terrible body, you have eyes, right? And a nose, and you have toes, and you have a heart, and you have sort of parts in here that we don't know. Right? We got toes, or no, fingers and thumb up there. We have all these different parts that have to work together. People that don't have a heart have a hard time having a healthy rest of their body. So all these parts in our body work together. And so functionalists kind of see society like that. They say all the parts of society work together for a stable environment. The police department, the courts, the different forms of government, from city councils to the federal government, our schools, our churches, our stores, our economy, our arts and crafts and sports, our TV and other media, they all come together in order to provide our world that allows us to sort of live good lives. And what functionalists see then is that if something gets out of whack, then society has to adjust itself to that. So when you think functionalism, think human body and interdependence. Everything relies on everything else. Conflict theory, on the other hand, looks at humans, groups of humans, and says those groups are going to do battle for the limited resources that are out there. And conflict theorists are interested in power, and for them, power equals money. And so conflict theorists are saying, follow the money, usually. Who has power? Why do small groups of powerful people usually hold sway over large populations of less powerful people? And of course, with money being divided the same way. Conflict theorists are the opposite of functionalists in the sense that they're always saying that change and conflict is inevitable. We're never trying to get to equilibrium like functionalists. According to conflict theorists, there's battle and conflict at all times, usually based on social class, but sometimes also based on gender or race or ethnicity. Interactionism is a micro theory, and interactionists are looking at the way that you and I, even in this moment, are interacting. How are we interacting? Through video taken by my assistant. You're watching it and you're seeing it, and you're developing thoughts and approaches, and I'm thinking about how we're getting along, and reality is somehow composed out of those interactions. So we would look at how people have a conversation. We would look at how, one of my favorite pieces of research from interactionists is looking at the different way that men and women inhabit space. Men tend to come in and colonize all the space around them. Women tend to sit within a confined space. Interactionists start from that and then develop theories about society based on the interaction of individual people. Feminism, finally, says, hey, great, you can look at all these different things. You can look at it from micro, you can look at it from macro, but whichever way you look at it, you sort of have to start with a gendered approach. If you're going to talk about poverty in the United States today, you got to start by talking about maybe the incarceration of young males, and you have to look at the widespread single mother households. If you're going to talk about warfare, you have to talk about the different ways that men and women both are treated as a consequence of that. If you're going to talk about religion, you've got to start with the fact that all religions seem to make a difference, or almost all religions make a difference between men and women. So feminism, you're talking about gender out in the foreground. So most sociologists focus mostly through one perspective, but there's time and place for them all, and we find that they all have something to offer. What I'm hoping is that by the end of this course, you'll be able to identify your own self as sort of resonating with one of these over the other. And I'll probably ask you that in a week or two. So when you start thinking about news items, when you start thinking about what you're reading, the text will help you with this too. Start thinking about, sports. What would a functionalist ask? What would a conflict theorist ask? What would an interactionist be interested in? Where would a feminist start, right? And you can start getting an idea for how these perspectives work. Anyway, that's it for today. Enjoy that. Keep up the good work, and I'll see you soon.